And we're backstage right now with my friend Isaac Solano. We're going to have a little interview with him about how Jesus Christ can change a life and transform it. What's going on, man?
Not much.
So tell me a little bit about your life, man. How were you before you got saved?
Well, basically, to put it simply, I knew what was right, and I wasn't doing it. But my whole life was given to making people think that I was doing stuff right. My father was a minister. When I was very little, I grew up hearing everything that was right and how I should live my life. And I got to a certain age, and what I did was I found it was easier to be involved in all the church activities and pretend, but still be living a completely different way outside of church and in my mind. Talking about going to church, being involved in all these different ministries, sound, and being involved in drama and bands, but still lusting after women and having thoughts of hatred and rebellion in my mind, but still being involved in everything and putting on this front like everything was fine. And if someone asked me, I would say, oh yeah, I'm doing great. I'm born again. I'm a Christian, because I knew that's what they wanted to hear. But certain people that weren't fooled because they had the mind of God. And so that's where things started to change. So,
All right, so up to this point in your life, dude, you're pretty much living a lie. You know, basically pretending to be one thing at church or whatever, and then pretending to be something else. You know, when you're on your own. So what is the truth? What was taught to you when you were young that made you want to change your mind and want to change the way you were living?
Well, the truth is that, and this is the truth that I knew the whole time, is that the things that I was doing, the thoughts that I was thinking, they were sending me to hell, because we're born sinners, and I knew that I had to change the way I was living with God's help to make it to heaven. But knowing that reality and knowing that God sent His Son to die on the cross for me, and that huge sacrifice, I didn't care. I just did my own thing anyways and pretended like that meant something to me, but it really didn't. And I was living two completely different lives.
So what'd you do? So you eventually got sick of that lifestyle, you know? Because I know me, I ran from it for so many years of my life that, you know, I was going crazy in my mind, you know, because I knew the truth, but I went away from it. And for me, I had to hit rock bottom before, you know, that I could realize that I needed God's help tremendously, you know? Was it kind of like that for you?
It was a little different, and I thank God for the way things went down. Sometimes people aren't going to change without some serious discipline inflicted on their life, and it was basically my leadership coming to me and sitting me down in a chair and saying, we know what you're doing. You're living this way and pretending to be this way. And what do you have to say for yourself? And I lied and said, I'm not doing this. I'm living fine. And so with that said, the leadership said, well, you're not gonna do that anymore. You have to change, or you have to leave. And so it was I wasn't changing, and I was lying about it. So I was asked to leave, and basically what happened is my time away was a little bit good, a little bit bad, but I wasn't living right. And finally I came to a point where I was sick of it. But what I'm saying is, someone had to smack me over the head and force me into it, because it wasn't just something I could do on my own. I was so deep in my own lies and confusion and just utter double-mindedness that I had to be grabbed by the back of the neck and said, this is what you're doing, this is what you need to do, or you're going to get in serious trouble. So that's what happened. Is I was very graciously allowed to come back, and I made the decision that I was going to let God be in charge of my life, and I was going to do what was right and do the things that I knew that were right all along, but they didn't mean anything to me. And so now the change is that my life isn't a lie. It is genuine, and that is how I live my life, is thinking about the right and the wrong and making sure I am trying to be as right as I can all the time with God's help.
And that's the whole point of tonight is to let people out there know that Jesus Christ is real and he's alive and he's in the business of changing lives. And it's amazing to me, and sometimes it's hard for me to believe that God in all his graciousness and all his righteousness can come, to make heaven our home. And with that said, thank you, man, for coming out. And back to speaking of the finish line.